Power is an MPO and it's also overseas.
People always say to me, what's it like to start a non-profit? And I always say the launch of Empower has actually taken about 20 years of building relationships. In our communities, there are champions or heroes that are already doing things. And so often I think as business people, as entrepreneurs, we think, and so we thought, why can't we do that here in South Africa? Why can't we empower champions? And I think there are so many people in our world today that want to be involved with something.
David, thanks so much for joining. Yeah, I'm really excited for you to be here, and thanks for joining. So today's topic is just going to be a normal conversation. We're just going to talk about family, finances, and faith. And so perhaps before we start, if you can just introduce us a little bit about yourself, from where your journey was and where you are today. And then we can take it on from there.
Great. Well, thank you, first of all, for having me here. It really is quite a privilege. And so thank you to you, Zander. And this is exciting for what you're doing and what you're putting together. And I trust and I believe that it's going to impact many lives. So, like you mentioned, my name's David. And I've been married for just over 7 years now. And to my beautiful wife, Brooke Octavia. And then got 2 kids, Judah James. He's my little boy. He's going to be 5 in August.
5 already?
Yeah.
Yes.
So time flies. Okay. And then my little girl, Riley Madison, will be 3 in August.
Yeah. Okay.
So that time flies with our kids.
Yeah.
And they grow so quickly and their personalities become so alive and real so quickly. Born in Johannesburg. Grew up in Johannesburg, did all my schooling in Johannesburg. And then when I had matriculated, my parents got an opportunity in Durbanville, northern suburbs of Cape Town. So being the baby in the house, I've got 2 older sisters. I followed with the parents.
Okay.
I didn't think I was brave enough or courageous enough to live by myself at 18.
Your sisters are older or younger?
Yeah, my sisters are older. Okay. So one's 3 years older, so 21 then, and then 5 years older. So it would have been, 23. So they were a lot more settled than I was just matriculating, which in hindsight was a great move for me to come down to Durbanville with my parents, study down in Cape Town, got connected to a great church,
and then you studied theology.
Yeah,
and also psychology.
So Cornerstone Christian College was in Plumstead at the moment then, and they affiliated to Stellenbosch. So the degree's actually through Stellenbosch, but like you say, focused on theology and psychology. So I did 3 years in that, and it was a really formative time of my life, getting an understanding of the Word of God, but also people. And I think those are kind of the 2 biggest things that we need an understanding of. If we understand our faith and we know who we are in Christ, everything else can flow from that. But also, how do we interact with people and meeting people where they're at? And I think psychology definitely helps with that, to get that understanding on a practical level. And then so finished up my studies, and then actually worked for a company called Glasscoat for 8 years as a sales rep. Okay. For them, we sold epoxy and polyurethane resin, flooring and paint, which was fantastic. And again, a learning experience, learning how to deal with clients, people that are unhappy that they didn't get their stock on time. How do you navigate those spaces when the order's not going to be ready on time and you're waiting on the factory? How do you treat them? But how do you treat the client and bringing that together?
And so the place that you worked at, was it still in Durbanville?
Yeah, so it's in Kuils River. So our premises that we worked at was Decro Paints. And Decro Paints used to manufacture all our products for us.
Yes.
So yeah, that was fantastic. Learned a lot about paint, which we all utilize. But it was interesting. So developed my people skills through that, but also began to realize I wasn't passionate about something that had no eternal value. And it blew my mind that I could be selling something that's over 1,000 Rand a square meter, and guys would be doing like 500 square meters at a time.
Yeah.
And, you know, it meant nothing in eternity.
Yeah.
And these guys didn't blink in paying that kind of money. So, I worked there for 8 years. And then in 2013, I felt a shift. I watched the Elevation DVD about Stephen Furtick and how they launched their church. And they left their county and they left their church and they went and planted just 8 couples with no clear strategy, just a word from God. And I felt something shift in my spirit then. And about a day later, I got a phone call from Sean, who's the senior pastor at Urban Edge.
Okay, yeah.
He wasn't the senior pastor then. Pastor Donovan was still. And I thought he was just going to phone and be like, hey, we need you to volunteer here or do this. And I went into his office and he said, would you be keen to work for the church? I said, sure. And he says, well, when can you start? So that was literally in the December, and in the January.
Which year was this now? This was in 2000 and...
So I started working for Urban Edge in 2013.
2013, okay. Yeah.
So it was great. And... did some incredible things. And one of the highlights was we began to realize so Durbanville's quite close to Stellenbosch. And we were realizing that we had a massive influx of kind of students on the weekend, and then they would disappear during the week. And we didn't know where they were, but obviously they were all in res and everything in Stellenbosch. So we started planting small groups into Stellenbosch.
Okay.
And I went to go visit a small group in Stellenbosch, and Brooke was attending it for the first time.
Okay. I was just about to ask her. That was most probably where you met.
That's how we met. So Brooke is from Georgia originally, where we live.
Yes, I remember. Yeah.
But she was studying in Stellenbosch, and then we got to do some exciting things together. We started something called Church in a Club, where we rented out Terrace, which is a nightclub in Stellenbosch, on a Thursday night, and guys could come in and order a drink and then sit, and we would have worship and a bit of a preach. And lives were impacted.
It's actually amazing. And then so from there on, so that's when you were still in Durbanville, and at Durbanville you were for how many years were you there at Urban Edge?
So I was there for 4 years.
4 years, okay.
Worked with the young adults, did pastoral work, as well as headed up the volunteers. Expanded my leadership. And Brooke and I started dating 2016. We got married in 2017.
2017,
So, and then again, we felt kind of the shift. We didn't know what it was going to be. And so we spoke to Sean again, and the initial thought was, I was already on staff at Urban Edge. Is there an opportunity for Brooke? And Sean was like, there is, but I can't tell you when. So you kind of just need to wait. And we kind of felt, is that going to be a 6 months wait? Is that a year? Is that 5 years, 10 years? And kind of felt, okay, how does this work out? And then Sean came back to us and he said, well, we've done missions trips to Lesotho, and we're actually looking for a full-time couple to go to Lesotho. Would you be interested in that? Which both Brooke and I we seriously considered. I had been going to Lesotho every year, at least once a year since 2002. It really had a massive place in my heart. And Brooke had gone there on other missions trips, out of our own capacity. So now we obviously married, and so there was a greater connection, and we prayed into that. We really felt it. Some downside is I'm not a handyman, so it would have been a challenge.
No, high five on that. I'm also not very good at being a handyman.
So if, our water pipes froze over or we needed to change a door handle on our house door, I think we would have struggled. And I'm also a little bit scared of riding horses, which we're planting churches. I would have needed to ride. But those are obviously just a couple of things that we make light of. But at the same time, because Brooke grew up here in George, her mom and friends were connected to a non-profit down in George.
Okay.
And they heard that potentially we would be looking to move to George, and they offered us something as a pastoral couple, which, we felt that connection kind of immediately. We came down in the September, took a look, and
this was September
2017.
2017. So it was quite quick though.
So first year of marriage, seeing it in September, resigned, and January 2018 we moved to George and we started working.
2018,
for the other non-profit. And then part of that journey was, so we both worked there in 2018. Brooke converted her degree to teaching.
Oh, yes.
And so 2019, York High School approached her and said, would you like to work for us?
Yes.
And York, her mom had been a teacher there and deputy headmaster, but also Brooke had attended York High. So it's quite a privilege for her to be there and a feather in the cap. So she started there in 2019 teaching English and history, and she's still there today, loving every moment with the students. I continued at the non-profit 2018, 2019. We had our son, 2020, and then 2021 in October. Well, September I resigned, and then I worked my last day in October 2021 at that non-profit, and then did some odd jobs and work, and then April 2022 launched Empower officially. And
so just to understand correctly, so Empower is an NPO, and it's also overseas. The other partner that you have, they are from America.
Yeah.
Okay. So did they sort of start the whole NPO organization, or did you start your side and you guys sort of started together?
So it's always amazing how God works. And people always say to me, what's it like to start a non-profit? And I always say, the official side is quite easy. You pay some guy, an accountant, and they register you, which can take 3-4 months and a couple of $1,000 or rand. And but the launch of Empower has actually taken about 20 years of building relationships. And it's because of the relationships that have built up over that time created a space where Empower would be ready. And so Justin and I co-founded Empower together. And it's kind of, we didn't know then, but in 2019 I had the privilege with the previous nonprofit to go to the US, and I was supposed to stay with someone else, and 2 days before they said, you know what, you can't stay with us. Are you prepared to stay with another gentleman?
Okay.
And I was like, well, as long as they got a bed and
just a roof over your head,
then I'm good to go. And that gentleman turned out to be Justin.
Okay.
So I met Justin's family, and Justin's married to Kate, and they've got a daughter, Harper. And so spent some time in their home. I really got to know them well, from everything from American football to good food in the US to running together. And we just struck up a really good friendship around faith and family and business. And then, so that was 2019. We just remained in chatting because we both wanted to make a difference in people's lives.
Yeah.
We didn't know how that looked. And then 2020 was COVID. So we took kind of that difficult time of staying at home as an opportunity to dream.
Yeah.
And so Brooke and I, we used to lie on the bed, and, we had a 7-month-old baby that, was challenging to keep them in a house for that a period of time. And so we would just lie on the bed and say, like, if we could do anything, what would it be? And both of us said, you know what, we both love Jesus and we both love people. And then kind of, you throw around ideas and you're like, okay, well, how do we show people that we love them? And one of the experiences that we had on mission trips was, and if anybody's been on a mission trip, maybe your experience is not like ours, but you kind of experience that, like, you pumped up, you're excited, you're like, yes, we're gonna change the world and we are God's chosen one, like, to bring this impact. And you arrive there and you're all pumped up, you prayed up, you're like, and then there's a missionary that lives there the whole year, the whole time, and you're kind of like, high five, you have my bags, thanks for looking after us, but we're gonna go, like, save all the people. And the missionary would often kind of just get overlooked. And you kind of like, thanks for the room, but God's called us. And both of us, Brooke and I, we had that experience and that thought, that we want to care for that missionary.
Yeah.
Because they are the ones that actually set up a base. They are the ones that carry the passion. They all year round, in the good seasons, the bad seasons. And so in that, in our communities, there are champions or heroes that are already doing things. And so often I think as business people, as entrepreneurs, we think we've got this idea, we've got to come in and bring it in. But there's so many people doing incredible things already. So it was actually Brooke's idea around that. She was like, I don't know if you know that American TV show, I don't know what it's called, but I think it's Extreme Home Makeover. And that guy's like, the bus is there. Move that bus. The bus moves out the way, and everybody's crying because it was this 1-bedroom house, and now it's like this 3-bedroom double-story mansion, like, and they all volunteered to do it over the weekend.
That's pretty amazing how those people get together and help out.
Exactly. And so we thought, why can't we do that here in South Africa? Why can't we empower champions or heroes that are working for nonprofits already, or they teachers in our schools that our kids go to, or they've started food kitchens out of their own and they don't know where the food is coming from, or they're literally cutting wood down in a forest and letting the wood dry and then making a fire from that wood to make food for the community. And so I'm obviously bouncing around, but taking that concept and saying, cool, our community would want to do something like that. And I think there are so many people in our world today that want to be involved with something. Something tangible.
Yeah, that's really true. I think there's a lot of people that they seriously want to get involved and, actually help out and make an impact. And I think the nice thing that you're doing is you're looking at people and sort of figuring out, what skills do you have, getting together, making an actual impact and a difference. And I think that's great, because a lot of times, there are people that actually really want to help. And so what I want to ask you is, in your working environment, what would you say has been some of the most difficult times in your working career? And what did you do to sort of overcome that situation?
Yeah, good question. I think just in conclusion to the last topic, and sorry, I wandered down a thing. So Brooke had the idea of Empower the Champion, and Justin and I were still talking.
Okay.
And together, because Justin's an entrepreneur, was like, hey, why don't we do something for entrepreneurs? And so in 2021, we registered at the end of 2021, we started to register a nonprofit. And we registered here, and then we registered in the US. So we co-founded this thing together. And what we're doing here, we're doing in the US. So we're empowering entrepreneurs there, we're empowering champions, and we're empowering the seed. So that just finishes up on that topic. So sorry for getting distracted. But to answer your question now, I think there's a multiple of levels on that. And I think different seasons have different challenges that make you think and experience things differently. So when I finished my studies, you're passionate, you're 22, you think you can take on the world, and you are God's gift to mankind kind of thing. And you're like, yes. And then working for a company, Glasgow, for 8 years. And like I mentioned originally, you're doing something for finances. But you kind of like, for me, I was like, this carries no eternal purpose. So that was a massive frustration inside of me, where it was like this, cool, I'm okay financially, but there must be more to life than this.
Yeah.
So obviously being there and realizing that sometimes part of the journey, like a Joseph, you have this dream of your brothers are going to bow down and everybody's going to bow down and you're just going to be like, make this difference. But it took, I don't know the exact, but I think it's like 18 years from when he had the dream to when the dream actually happened. So I think those 8 years for me particularly felt like, okay, God, you've stirred something in my heart.
Yeah.
But I'm feeling frustrated.
Yeah.
And I want to do something. So when the church offered me something, it gave and rejuvenated that passion, that energy inside of me.
So you would say that's sort of the light in the tunnel for you when making a decision from one working environment to a different.
So I think
that passion.
One of the linings was, and I'll digress, is when I was 21, 22, I thought there was going to be an opportunity to work in the church, and it didn't happen.
Okay.
And there was hurt inside of David, and I think it took David 8 years to grow my character.
Okay.
And who I was. And when I watched that Elevation DVD, and one of the things that stood out to me was, and I got to a place that I said to God, I will love you and love people and serve people for the rest of my life, even if I never get recognized by another person.
John.
And I think
it's a strong drive to,
and it's a hard lesson to learn, because I think more so in men, we have this we want to get recognized. We want to, not applauded and held up, but at least well done on your work.
Yeah.
And I think that's natural. But when I got to that place, God performed the miracle, and it was I got that shit.
So you would actually say let's call it perhaps a difficult time. In that difficult time, that was actually the time when God was actually busy molding you, building your character for something different.
Yeah.
And so perhaps, what would you say, because I think a lot of, especially young guys, if they want to make a change from one working environment to another, a lot of times it's, let's say circumstances or whatever it is, your finances that push you sometimes into a certain level.
Yeah.
And especially in your case, what would you say gave you sort of the, yes, this is what I wanted to do, and sort of you had this fixed decision of, come what may, this is what I'm going to do. Yeah. How did you get to that point? Was it circumstances, or was it something that is really God stirring in your heart? Because I think the reason why it's important to talk about it is a lot of times we make decisions on perhaps our circumstances, whether it's finances or we get desperate for something else, and we make let's say a quick decision, and then we just realize, we're sort of in the same boat in a sense. So would you say that drive in your heart, that hunger for something else, irrelevant of the outward standards, was that sort of the light in the tunnel for you to go to the next chapter?
Yeah, challenging question, but a great one. And I think so that shift from corporate to working for the church, I think it was seeing God's timing.
Yeah.
because the church hadn't offered me something prior to that. And I
Yes.
almost came to that
Okay.
place where I'm giving this up.
Yeah.
And even if I work for corporate for the rest of my life, I'm okay with that.
Okay.
And so I think that shift, and a lot of the times in my personal experience, is you've got to be aware of your surroundings and what's
Yeah.
taking place.
It's still good to be aware.
And realizing that, and probably one of the best illustrations that I can think of is like trapeze artists at the circus. You know, when they've got those swings so high up and the person swings on the one swing. But while this swing is happening, this swing already begins to move.
Yeah. Okay. That's
And
interesting.
only
Yeah.
at timing can you let go of this
Let go.
one and
Yeah.
grab the next one.
That's pretty good.
And I think so often we're on a swing, and if you don't jump,
Yeah.
it just stops, because eventually momentum runs out if you need to make a change or
Yeah.
something. But sometimes we do the other side. We haven't waited for this one to start swinging, so then
Yeah.
we just let go, and then we fly,
Yeah.
and then we land on the safety net, and then, yeah, but God, you know, this, or, you know, I don't understand why that person didn't invest in me. It's, you know, it's the best idea, or this or that. The God's like, wait on me. That timing I will bring
Yeah.
at the right opportunity. So the one is the purpose inside of me. But two, I mean, one of the things about Empower was I felt something stirring again.
Okay.
But there was also, we work for a great nonprofit, did some really amazing things, but there was also a financial burden.
Yeah.
And, you know, there's certain things that you can do as a bachelor. You can do even if it's just you and your wife. You can take almost larger risks.
Yeah.
And, you know, if you go through a couple of bad months, like both of you can understand, or just yourself, you don't mind eating bread and baked beans for a couple of months because to find your feet again.
Yeah.
But when you become a father and you become responsible for others,
Yeah. That changes.
there's a place, and I mean, I don't have all the answers around it. I can just be, there's a place for purpose.
Yeah.
There's also a place for responsibility.
That's very good, because it's such a fine line. Very, very fine line.
And
I think a lot of, especially myself, I missed it. You know, I was always like chasing the money or chasing the dream or whatever it is. Then when you become a father and you know, someone actually stays with you, then you realize, you know, I've actually got to take a responsibility for my
I can't not pay school fees for 3 months, you know, or, you know, no formula.
Yeah.
Your child doesn't understand that. And there's certain things I think we as individuals can take risks, and we understand the costs. But we've got to take responsibility of fathers as men. You know, is this our fight? Is this our family's fight? And we've got to differentiate between that, because sometimes we think it's our fight. It's not. And we've actually got to make decisions that are not just for us, but it's for our kids.
Yeah.
And that's the challenging. So, and that's why I said the swing starts to move. And so this other nonprofit was feeling, I've got to look after my 2 kids, and it doesn't matter how much purpose I have.
Yeah.
If I can't pay our bills at the end of every month.
Yeah.
And I knew God would provide. I knew God would make a way, but God's also given us wisdom.
Yeah.
And so at that stage, the previous nonprofit said to me, you know, and this is funny how, and that's why I'm saying God brings pieces together. Said, we can't pay you a greater salary.
So this was the previous
nonprofit.
the previous one, yeah. Okay.
So I said, okay. But then they said, but we want you to be able to potentially earn more, but you would need to find your own funding.
Okay.
So almost like a missionary salary. So I said, okay, I don't know what that looks like. And I went to a financial advisor and said, how does this look on a bank statement if money's flowing into my account, but I'm still getting a salary?
From NPO.
How does a tax look on that? And the financial advisor said to me, the best advice I can give you is register a non-profit.
Yeah, okay.
And so Empower wasn't even on the mind. We didn't have a name. We didn't have anything.
Yeah, okay.
But from a raising funds, which we actually never raised funds as a mission, I resigned before then. But that triggered the registration.
Yeah.
And that triggered more conversations between Justin and I to say, well, if we've got this, why not put some meat on a skeleton?
Yeah, absolutely.
And then that's how Empower got birthed. And
yes,
when I resigned, I thought that was the hardest conversation.
Yeah.
And Dr. Sam Chand, he's a leadership guy in the US. He's written 2 books, Who's Moved Your Ladder and Who Holds Your Ladder. I can't remember which one's first, but he speaks about the influence of people. And he says, like, if you're painting a wall and you climb up a ladder, you can only paint that far because the ladder holds you in a space. And either you can climb down the ladder every time and then you move the ladder and you climb up, or you can have someone that's holding your ladder and they shift your ladder for you.
Okay.
And you can do...
Yeah.
And the second book, he speaks about this very thing. He was working as a president of a university and he felt a shift in him. So he resigned. And they came back and they countered offered and they were like, we'll raise this and we'll do all this. And he kind of said, thank you. I'll still help. I'll still find the right people for you. But I feel that this is where I need to go.
Okay, yeah.
And again, I was like, God, I don't understand why I'm reading this book. It's about keeping doors open. And when I resigned, about a week later, the CEOs of the previous nonprofit came to me and said, we just want to let you know that we'll keep your position open for 6 months for you.
Okay, that's interesting, yeah.
So if you feel you want to come back, we want you to come back.
And how did you, was it confusing for you?
And I was like, okay, God, is this a, what's it, Abraham putting Isaac on the altar?
Yeah.
Was I supposed to put it on the altar, or now must I pick up Isaac off the altar again? And so I thought, okay. And I went to the pastors of our church that I attend, and I'm accountable to them. So I shared the process with them and the thoughts. And funnily enough, they also came back to me and said, would you want to work for us? And I was like, okay, guys, what is happening?
Yeah, okay.
And then Empower was there. We had just registered. We were still waiting for like a PBO status. And Empower was getting 1,000 Rand a month in from a mate of mine in Cape Town, which I'm grateful for. That he was like, you know what, David, I know you and we'll back you. And I'm grateful for that mate. And we're still really good mates. And just the journey that he's come on and that trust. But again, how do you make a decision out of that?
Yeah, because it must have felt weird for you because you want to move forward in a sense, and now all these other options come back to play.
And financially and from a security point of view, coming back to being a dad, what's the best decision? Power's making 1,000 Rand a month. We can't live in South Africa on 1,000 Rand a month. We can't, ourselves can't live, let alone a family of 4. And Brooke and I chatted, and I said, babe, I don't know 100%, but I got 2 words, peace and trust. And I said, like, if we don't engage this now, we'll never know. And maybe at 65, 70, we might look back and think, why didn't we?
Yeah.
And we had just formed our board. And one of the factors was I was like, through relationships, if you, and they know me pretty well, so I think if we did say not right now, they would have been understanding. But I don't know if we would have ever revisited Empower.
Okay.
And because we had the board, I said, let's go with this. And we started, and crazy.
Yeah, that's actually amazing.
My daughter went into hospital in the March of 2022.
They were still in COVID.
So after COVID, she
Okay.
was 7 months old then. So it was about a year and a half, 2 years after COVID.
Yeah.
And I was in this transition of handing over the business to focus on Empower, which was a stressful time. And a guy kind of made me a basic offer, which would keep me going for March. And I said, it's cool, I'll take it.
Yeah.
But it provided a platform where I could spend every day in a hospital with my daughter and be there for her as a father.
Yeah.
And I could be there as a family, knowing that at least that month we sorted.
Yeah.
And I remember in the hospital, I texted Justin and I texted our board then. I said, I don't know what this is going to look like, but April 2022, I'm going full time.
Okay, so then you told them.
And we've never looked back, and God's provided.
Oh, that's really amazing.
So to answer your question, I think different seasons carry different struggles for us that we need to consistently come back to God. Say, God, what's happening in this season? Am I feeling frustrated with my purpose? Am I feeling frustrated with finances? Or whatever it is. But I really believe in my faith that if God's closing one door, he will open another. But are we aware of the doors that are around us? Are we aware of the things that are taking place around us? And it might look different. It might be completely outside the box of what we thought this is what my life's going to look like. That's okay.
Yeah.
Are we willing to step out? And those are the two words, peace and trust. Both in a boat, both on the water.
Yeah.
Peace, the disciples are on the boat, the waves are crashing in. And then they realized, hey, Jesus is on the boat. Let's wake him up. Jesus gets up. I don't care whether your theology says it was daytime, whether there was, the water was only this deep, whatever it was. I'm like, you had 12 grown men that were experienced fishermen that were scared of dying.
Yeah.
And Jesus got up and he was like, waves be still, storm quiet down. And there was absolute peace.
Yeah.
And I took something out of that in life, there will always be storms.
Yeah, absolutely.
But do we know that Jesus is on the boat with us?
Yeah.
And then trust was, again, the disciples on the boat. And they see Jesus coming. And Peter was the only one that said, Jesus, if that's you, tell me to come.
Yeah.
And Jesus said, come.
Yeah.
How much trust is there? No one's walked on water before. To step out of a boat, out of your comfort zone, which you know, you've experienced, you understand, into an unknown, unsafe environment on the word of someone else.
Yeah.
Absolute trust.
And I mean, that's a huge topic. I mean, making career decisions is massive. It becomes such a fine line, and what to do, what not to do. And I think specifically in your situation, in a sense, you were like a Peter getting out of the comfort, zone, the boat, and getting onto the water. And then even though you still doubt a little bit, it's going to feel like you're drowning. But the beautiful part of the picture is Christ still came and he says, hey, listen, it's okay.
And they both walked back to the boat.
And they both walked back to their boat, yeah.
Because I don't think Jesus was like, okay, Peter, you swim, I'm holding your hand. But I'll walk on the water, but you swim.
Yeah, you just keep swimming. No, yes, it's really amazing. So tell me a little bit more. And what I want to dive into is, so I want to talk to you a little bit about finances and family. I think we can perhaps end off with that. So in your personal finance in your own career, how do you manage your personal finances? Well, let's say in your marriage, how do you manage your personal finances with your family? And if there are any conflicts, how do you overcome conflicts? Anything like that? And do you guys have sort of a strategy how you manage your finances?
Yeah.
Big topic.
It is. It's a massive topic, but I think it's a very real one.
Yeah.
And I think, I mean, you've mentioned before as well, Zander, like money's the number one topic in the New Testament.
Yeah,
maybe
very
second. I can't remember the exact stats. You would know better. But Jesus spoke about it a lot. Yet I think we so often like shy away from that. But it is something, personal confession time. So when we got married, we had that budget between Brooke and I, and like we mapped it out and we stuck to it. And we did really well with it until we had Riley. And then it kind of like every man for himself over here. As long as we're paying our bills and, you know, we're saving a little bit, that's where we're at. But, you know, in the last 2-3 weeks, it's one of the things like, I know I need to have that conversation with Brooke again and say, what are we earning? And where's our budget? Where is our money going? We have a basic understanding.
Yeah.
But I think it's so good to have that detail-oriented aspect of it. And I'm not a detailed person, so I need to work on that. But I think you also mentioned there are apps out there that they link to your bank account.
You can use,
and they help track. Because I think one of our things that we've slipped into, and I don't know how we're going to overcome this or have a conversation about, is, you know, when we fetch the kids from school, they're like, let's just get a treat. And, you know, I've really been thinking about it. And you might need to stop at the shop and get bread or milk or something, which is a necessity. But I think where our budgets slip away from us is not in the large amounts.
Yeah.
It's in the smaller day-to-day.
Yeah.
And, you know, when I work out, and I mean, they might get a chocolate every second day or whatever. But for 2 kids, that's like 20 Rand every second day.
Yeah. Can quickly add up.
Which adds up. It adds up on, we're just going to this meeting, let's get a cup of coffee.
Correct.
A cup of coffee is 40 Rand now.
Yeah.
So all of a sudden you begin to realize we're tight at the end of the month. How do we work this? And you can't track it.
Yeah, it's very difficult.
But if you've got an app or something's tracking, you begin to realize we probably spent 2 grand this month on things we didn't need to.
Yeah.
And then the conflict comes on the other side because, you know, we need to earn more because we're not like getting to this and that. But then it's, where's our responsibility? Yes, we might need to earn more, and I think it's healthy to have that growth.
Yeah.
But on the flip side, with what God's given us, are we good stewards of that?
Yeah, I think that's sort of the key of it.
Can we give account for that? And I think if we good stewards, I mean, what does the Bible say again? If we're faithful with the little, He can entrust us with much.
Correct.
And I think it's those 20 rands, those 40 rands, that it's just quickly, we're just in the shops, we're just adding this on. And if you do that once a week or whatever, it's not a big deal. And we should be doing that for our families and for our kids and for our wives or husbands.
Yes.
But when it's just every day or every second day, I think we need to be wise on that.
Yeah, and that's true. It's definitely like the smaller details can really make an impact. And like you said, if you don't have control over those small little things, it can really catch you.
Yeah.
A lot of times, even I myself, still I use some apps that I use and I try to budget, but still sometimes I overspend a little bit here, perhaps a little bit there.
Or
but
you don't load it, or you like,
this. But in a sense, if you can just start and just practice a little bit, and slowly but surely you'll get better at it, and then it becomes a little bit better if you start to manage the small little things. like one thing for me is I realize, especially with food, the rand that's getting weaker, your purchasing power gets weaker. So you've got to be so wise with your finances. And it's such a big topic, especially in the Christian community, in the culture.
Yeah.
I mean, Christ says to us, he says that the worldly people are smarter than my own children. And he says, go and learn from them.
Sure.
And that was big for me. Then I realized, okay, hey, Christ is trying to tell us something.
Yeah.
So that's why I myself, I learned from a lot of people on basics, how to budget, how to save, and then slowly but surely start to invest.
Yeah.
That's also a great topic. I think we can dive in forever. But yeah, I mean, I agree. Just keeping it basic, keeping it simple. One thing that's definitely helped me is if you struggle, which I do sometimes, and what I do is if I see I still overspend here in a certain area, then I actually I withdraw cash, and I put it in an envelope.
Awesome.
That literally, because if it's up, it's up.
Yeah.
So, but I don't do it in everything because then it's like fees and all those things. But in general, that helps a lot sometimes. But yeah, that's always.
I think, like to tie in with that, I think if we want to see growth in anything, it takes time, effort, and energy.
Discipline, yeah, very much.
So people who want to get a six-pack and look buff at the gym, it doesn't happen overnight. And our society pushes us into, it's a quick fix. It's got to happen today, tomorrow.
Yeah.
But I think it's the basic habits that you instill. And a friend of ours that actually shared at one of your courses said a one-liner that's stuck out to me. And hopefully I can quote it right. But they were saying that things are difficult until they become a habit.
Yeah.
And that's true in anything.
Yeah.
If you're a runner, it's difficult to get out and run every day or every second day until it becomes a habit.
Yeah.
Or to read a book once a month or to budget. It's difficult to tighten the belt and be like, we're not spending on that, or come on, we had 1,000 Rand budgeted for that, but it's an extra $200. Let's just, but if we build those patterns or habits in, I believe that when we look back in a year, 3 years, 5 years, 10 years, we're going to be like...
Yeah, correct. And I mean, that's a lot of people, you hear it a lot where people say, old habits die hard. So it's so true because you've got to be careful what type of habits you start. A friend of mine the other day said also a very good topic. He says, an easy life is hard, but a hard life is easy. That was very interesting.
Sure.
That sort of like struck me because I realized what he was saying is actually very, very accurate and very true.
Yeah.
Anything that you're going to start with is going to be difficult.
Yeah.
Anything that's extremely difficult, it's going to be tough. But eventually, down the line, it's going to be easy.
Yeah.
But if you just kick back and say, it's going to be fine, it'll sort out itself, then you've got to be aware of that mindset because then it can become difficult. Yes, it's easy now to say, it will be okay. But down the line, you're going to realize, you're at a crossroad and you're going to have to take responsibility because those actions are going to lead to, either left or right. So that struck me when he said that to me. An easy life is hard and a hard life is easy. And it's like you said, going to the gym. That's hard.
It's hard.
Difficult. It's tough.
Particularly in George in winter, like it's raining, it's cold, it's dark.
All those things are tough, but eventually it's going to be an easy life for you.
Yeah.
You're going to be strong, you're going to be mobile, you're going to feel healthy, you're going to look healthy. And that was really something that stood with me for a while.
Yeah.
So that's really, really good. But perhaps to end off, I think let's go for family and tell me a little bit about choosing a partner. And what would you say is, what gave you the peace of choosing Brooke? Would you say it was something, especially when we're young?
Just the looks.
Just the looks, yeah. Especially when we're young, you fall in love.
Yeah.
All the goosebumps, etc. But then you realize down the line, hey, wait a minute, there's more to this than just that. Falling in love is great, staying in love is great, but it's like Solomon says, beauty fades away.
Yeah.
It's not physical beauty, but in a sense it is, but it's also the let's call it the honeymoon phase, like everyone calls it. That can go away, and then the raw, real stuff happens. So what would you say from your perspective in choosing a partner? What would you say for any youngster or what to look for in someone. Is it good to know yourself? Obviously, you got to know what you like, what you want in a partner, and then from there on, how do you know how to choose your partner?
Yeah, all your questions are so in depth and multi-layered. But one, I think you answered yourself there in you've got to know yourself. Do you, as Zander, or I, as David, understand David and who I am in Christ and the purpose that I believe I'm called to? So not always where you begin, but where you want to end up. And so I think self-awareness is such a critical thing in our lives today, because all of us have blind spots. All of us, we can see certain things about ourselves, but there's so many things that we don't see. So to get a great group of people around us that are speaking into our lives, one, to understand ourselves.
Yeah, you would say that makes a big difference.
So that's the foundation.
Okay, yeah.
Because if you don't understand yourself, my mom used to always say, two halves don't make a whole in marriage. Two wholes make a whole marriage. So if you're looking for something in a spouse because you lack in a certain area,
you're looking for the wrong things.
You're always going to try and hold on to that thing and hold that person responsible for that in your marriage, which they actually not responsible for that.
Very good.
I'm just saying, let's say depression.
Yeah.
You can't look at your spouse and put full responsibility on your spouse to make you joyful and happy all the time. Come on.
Yeah.
Yes, they can bring that in, but it's not their it's still your responsibility to be a whole person for your spouse.
Yeah.
So I think to understand yourself and to work on yourself to become whole. Then there was a podcast that I listened to, and it's quite a while ago that I listened to it, but it's by a guy, Cole Lentz, and his sermon was called "That Girl Is Poison," and he spoke about Samson and Delilah. And one of the biggest things that stood out to me, he said, you know what, and kind of it ties in with step one, if we could say, and this is step two. He said, once you understand your purpose and your calling in God, the best thing for you to do as a young person is to put your head down and run after your calling.
Yeah.
Run. 6 months to a year. Then after 6 months to a year, he says, still run, but lift your head up, look to the left, look to the right. Who is running with you? Then he says, take notice, then put your head down again, run after your calling. 6 months to another year. Lift up your head. Some people would have fallen away, but who's still running with you? And he said, out of those people running in the same direction as you, you're probably going to end up marrying one of those people.
That's interesting, yeah.
Because you're both chasing God's purpose and calling over your life. So it means you're aiming in the right direction. Because he then went on to say, so many of us, I'm just saying, we get saved, we're passionate about church, and we love Jesus, and we want to become a business person. So we do that.
Yeah.
And then we turn 30. Yeah. And then we're like, I'm not married. I need to find someone. So we slow down on our business adventures. They still tick over and we're still making money and whatever. And then we go find someone. So instead of running our race, we deviate. And we might find another Christian person in church, because everybody tells us you've got to find someone in church, which is great, and we need to. But then we start dating, and that person says, well, I also love Jesus, but I want to become a missionary. But like you say, you fall in love, you get married, it's great. But then you go back to business because you've caught your wife.
Yeah.
She's saying, but you promised we were going to go into the missions field. So I'm making it like very Christian. So often we think you've got to be unequally yoked, Christian, non-Christian. But I'm saying both could love Jesus.
Yeah.
Still understanding your purpose helps, Because one person might love Jesus in a way and do dynamically, but still work and volunteer their time. Another person could feel called to full-time ministry. It's different.
Yeah.
When I say called to full-time ministry, we all in full-time ministry, but working at a church, paid by a church, that kind of full-time ministry. So that's why I'm saying to come back. One, understand yourself, purpose, calling by God. Two, find someone that's in the same direction as you.
Yeah.
And then three, which we're learning now. We've been married for 7 years and it's been fantastic, but we've got to keep on working on our marriage and still keep on finding date nights and loving each other. And because I think we can become complacent.
Yeah.
And, it's the kids and as well, that particularly when you got babies and young kids.
Especially,
it takes a lot of time.
Yeah.
And then you're tired. And then you're like, babe, I know we said we would go out for dinner now, but can't we just chill at home and watch Netflix or whatever, And then that's okay to do once or twice.
Yeah.
But then you begin to realize 2-3 years down the line, we haven't gone on any dates.
Yeah.
And I mean, we laugh, but it could happen that quickly.
No, it's very true. I mean, me and Maritz also spoke about it a few weeks ago. Like, we underestimate you have to work on marriage. And I was like, okay, I heard when people said it, but I didn't really realize it actually until when you're married a few years. You really got to make effort. You got to make effort for a date night. You got to make effort to communicate. How was your day, etc. Those things, you really got to work on. Sort of like the other part that you said, you got to take responsibility.
Yeah.
Now that you have a responsibility as a man, as a wife, you got to make it work. You got to, you cannot ignore it.
Yeah.
And that's where I think I fall into that, let's say it's a trap in a sense, where I like, okay, now I'm married, the business is going well, now I can relax. That's a dangerous place to be. Very dangerous, because I've quickly realized, like, no, I can't go on with this mindset or whatever it is.
Yeah.
And so it's such a good thing to talk about, and communication. At the end of the day, communication is really, massive. Even if it's uncomfortable, even if you don't feel like it's the right time or the right mood, just sit down if you can and communicate. Yeah. That's all. And then slowly but surely you'll build. And the other thing also, which is great, is that don't be shy to share the deepest thing that bothers you or that excites you, whatever it is. Yeah. Just get it out.
Yeah.
It's like scripture says, which is very beautiful, like open rebuke is better than hidden love.
Yeah, true.
I've spoken it about Donald also in the previous conversation. And it's just rock solid every time. When something really bothers you, instead of leaving it in there, get it out. Try your best, obviously, to pick the right time, etc. if you can, but just talk.
And when you got kids, it's the right timing. Is there ever a right timing? You kind of just got to,
especially when
take the gap where...
that can become very challenging. But yeah, David, thanks so much for joining. I really had a good conversation, and if there is the next one, I'm very excited for this. But yeah, thanks for coming out, and it was a great pleasure to have you today.
Cool, thank you. And I'm excited for this and for the impact that it's going to have on people.
Yes.